After Zuko finds his mom, we pick up on a new story at the Fire Nation colony of Yudao, as Aang and all of his friends stand in a crowd of firebenders, earthbenders, and airbender acolytes, all waiting for the announcement of their newly elected coalition government. After the ceremony, Aang and everyone head towards the banquet, but off to the side, the Avatar spots a mysterious hooded figure in Air Nomad clothes, so after struggling to get through the crowd for a bit, he goes over them Gojo style and ends up meeting this person outside when he realizes that it was Avatar Yangchen, the previous Airbender Avatar, standing before him somehow as a vision. Yangchen points off to the distance trying to speak to Aang, but he can't hear a word she's saying, and as he tries to grab her, his hand goes through and she fades away, leaving him extremely confused. Aang tries his best to connect to the spirit world, but can't no matter how hard he tries, as Katara eventually finds him alone wondering if something is wrong, and Aang of course tells her everything that happened, as Katara tells Aang that if he can't do anything about it right now, he should come and enjoy the celebrations and figure it out some other time. Aang rushes down towards the air acolytes and tells them that tomorrow they're all going on a field trip, as it seems like Katara's words cause him to realize something. In the morning on Appa's back, Aang explains that 100 years ago, there was something called the Yangchen Festival, which was a really fun event that could have been completely lost to history if not for his vision yesterday. Their destination is a beautiful giant statue of Avatar Yangchen, and in the past you'd see hundreds of sky bison and airbenders in their gliders arriving to bow together towards the statue as a sign of respect before walking down the cliff to a secluded meadow playing traditional Air Nomad music the entire way. After arriving there, they'd relax and eat for a while before flying kites on a nearby island, and in general it sounds like Aang has some really nice memories of his time here, but little does he realize the darkness waiting to be uncovered in this very spot. After arriving at the massive statue where the Yangchen Festival used to take place, Sokka and the others realize that this isn't actually a statue of Yangchen, and Aang says he doesn't really know the Airbender history all that well, but apparently Avatar Yangchen defeated a powerful dark spirit in the past, leading to the others wondering if this statue is of the dark spirit itself, which confuses them considering part of the festival includes bowing to this statue. When Aang tells him that he just bows to the statue because that's how it's done, Toph has a series of flashbacks where she remembers all the time her family told her that's just how it's done growing up, and usually it was for things that she really didn't want to do that kept her secluded from everyone else, leading to Toph not wanting to take part in any of Aang's rituals, telling him that if this statue hasn't been worshipped in over 100 years, how important could it be, especially given Aang doesn't even remember who they're bowing to, as things start to get a little tense. Aang tries to get everything back on track as they continue the ceremony by playing instruments down the path and into the forest, all while planning their big meal of bean sprouts and tofu. I mean, yeah, this totally sucks for Toph and Sokka, who are not happy, but eventually all of the noise caused by the instrument begins to really piss Toph off, so she uses her metal bending to destroy the cymbals one of the air acolytes was playing, yelling that they need to do this quietly if they're gonna have to go through all of this. As everyone looks forward to Aang for guidance on what to do here, but not turning around so as to now reveal how he really feels, Aang tells everyone to just keep going because they're almost at the meadow. However, as they keep pressing forward, they come across a large town polluting the entire area, and unfortunately, the town is exactly where the sacred Airbender Meadow was supposed to be. This is crushing to Aang, who can't believe that such a sacred place was destroyed in replace of this city. However, as Katara tries to calm him down, saying 100 years have passed, sweetie, off on the side, we see Toph and Sokka smelling the delicious scent of cooked meat, so they run off after it. It's here where, to everyone's surprise, a member of Katara's waterbending tribe actually calls out her name, stepping forward, as our party member is shocked to see Nyok here, who tells her that she came all of this way to the Earth Kingdom to work in the refinery alongside the others. But what others is she talking about? That's when suddenly Katara notices that Nyok's sister Nutha is also here, and as she tries to call out to her and gets nothing but a cold stare, Aang spots a vision of Avatar Yangchen leading him off to the side, as they wander to a gate, holding back some pretty horrible smells. Launching everyone over the gate using some simple earthbending, they make it to the other side where they finally found the sacred meadow, but it's disgusting. The water is green and lets loose horrible fumes that aren't safe to breathe, causing Aang to realize that this is the reason he keeps seeing Yangchen, that the land of the Air Nomads is being defiled, and it's time for him to put a stop to it. It's here where we see a force of guards running out to greet Aang, and their leader loves that this is happening right now because he says once you step on the other side of that fence, you're a trespasser. That makes you all mine. Men, seize them! Right there, the guards all use earthbending to call up pillars from the ground that they then use slices of as projectiles to try and create stone cuffs on our characters. However, Aang and Katara easily deflect all of those, with Aang using his bending to make sure his students are safe. There, Katara offers to handle these guys by herself, but Aang actually uses this as a lesson, and I find this really cool, because we actually get to see Aang act like a sensei to someone. Here, Aang tells them that the lesson here is that as Air Nomads, you don't engage in battle for no reason. The Air Nomads are a peaceful people, but that doesn't mean you just ignore conflict either. Often with a simple nudge, conflicts work themselves out, as Aang leaps over all of the guards, allowing them to crash into each other. This gets them out of trouble for the moment, as suddenly off on the side a man begins clapping because of how impressive that battle was, as he introduces himself as Satoru, the engineer of the nearby refinery, immediately revealing that he knows who the Avatar and his friends are, since of course they're pretty famous. Satoru apologizes, saying that those guards should have checked with him before attacking anyone on his property. However, as Aang tries to have a serious conversation with him about how he built a refinery on sacred land, Satoru can't stop fanboying over meeting the Avatar, and then freaks out even more when he spots Toph in the background, saying that she's an even bigger legend because not only did she help save the world, she created a kind of bending that not even the Avatar can do, so she's even more impressive. This causes Aang to make a face. However, Satoru invites Toph to Earth and Fire Industries, saying that her friends can tag along if she wants, and with that everyone makes their way inside, but the vibes are definitely off. This becomes even more obvious as he walks everyone through the area, giving the history of how this place opened, telling Toph that Uncle discovered the area many years ago with a bounty of natural resources, but he wasn't allowed to develop it for political reasons. However, thankfully, since this is in the Earth Kingdom and his uncle is from the Fire Nation, of course, that kind of stuff ended up not mattering too much in the end. Aang steps in here saying, hey man, this land is technically part of the Earth Kingdom, but historically, the Air Nomads have always had a claim, and that's all that he says as he realizes that this guy is just not listening to him at all. Satoru tells Toph that because Toph and the others ended the war, that allowed his uncle to open up a business here with a member from the Earth Kingdom, making this the first joint business venture between the two nations. But as much as that sounds like progress, Aang is still not happy. At this moment, we're given a look into how the operations work here, and I've got to say it is a well-oiled machine. You have earthbenders bringing in the large raw rocks and separating them from the ones that have glowing stones in them and the ones that don't, as waterbenders work together to clean the stones and completely separate the gems from them, and then the leftovers continue down to the conveyor belt to either another group of earthbenders who sorts them into their respective containers, or to a group of firebenders powering the entire facility with their flames. It's a beautiful show of unity and how the different nations can work together to get things done. However, in the next room, Satoru shows them the newer production line that's capable of doing everything that the first room did. However, they do it with machines instead of bending, so that even a normal person can work there, and also because it takes years to train benders when you can just have a machine do it all night and day once it's turned on. However, here is where we're starting to see some of the issue, right? Satoru's attempt to modernize this company more and more is leading to increased pollution, and his ties to the local government might potentially be allowing the city to turn a blind eye to it. So as Aang continues to think of some way to really tackle all of this, during the tour when he spots it, Sokka goes, "What is that?" And when Satoru says, "The forklift?" Sokka asks if he can give it a spin, as Katara tries to get him to stop because 1, he's not forklift certified, and 2, there's a man literally trying to do his job on it. Completely ignoring this, Sokka somehow convinces the guy to break OSHA regulations and let him take the forklift for a whirl as the tour continues for everyone else, but Sokka is just out there with a huge smile on his face whipping around a forklift. And this is extra funny to me because he's from the Southern Water Tribe. He's never seen anything like this, and I can imagine him telling the story to other people like he conquered some strange beast. As everyone else continues on the tour of Satoru, explaining that his company is trying to maximize the amount of resources that they can extract from the land, in the background we see Sokka going from left to right, slowly getting faster as eventually he speeds across the screen, screaming how fast can this thing go. At that point, Satoru finally looks concerned, saying that he doesn't think they're really built for speed, and that's where he's immediately proved right because the entire engine blows on this thing, causing Sokka to do a walk of shame and apologize. It's here where we learn that Satoru is actually the inventor of the forklift, where he apologizes back to Sokka, saying that it's really his fault for having such a faulty design. However, Toph can see through this. Using her senses, she locks in on the engine of the machine and is shocked at how perfectly crafted everything is, even the parts that nobody would ever see. How did he do this? But he laughs, saying that she could see it, with her responding that she guesses he's right because any of her students would be able to do the same. Confused at what she means, and since Satoru hasn't seen our video on Toph's Metal Bending Academy, he asks about it before the two get into a conversation about partnering up so that her students can get real experience working on his machines and applying their metal bending. And everyone gets grossed out by how hard these two are nerding out. Thankfully for Aang, he actually has a reason to walk away as he gets a vision of Avatar Yangchen standing in the distance. However, However, when he takes a step forward in his mind, he suddenly sees a massive creature with stone-plated samurai armor and some sort of jewel in its head attacking a building and razing it to the ground. Confused, Aang asks if this is from the past or if it's something that hasn't happened yet, but as Yangchen disappears, it seems like it's gonna be a while before we get any answers. Aang cuts all the side chatter and tells Satoru that he's sorry for interrupting, but this entire time he's been trying to speak and feels like Satoru isn't listening. There shouldn't be a refinery here, let alone an entire town, because this was sacred Air Nomad land. It's literally part of one of their most sacred ceremonies, and now they can't even practice it anymore. Not caring how touchy of a subject this is, Toph speaks up saying, who cares? Who do you expect to follow a rule from the old days? No one's been here for 100 years, so if someone finally came along and found a way to make it useful, what's the problem? Aang tries to plead with Toph, telling her that Avatar Yangchen keeps appearing to him in visions, showing him that something bad is gonna happen if balance isn't restored here, but he's not sure what exactly, allowing Toph to continue to go off about how annoyingly vague this all is, telling Aang not even he knows the details, so why is he freaking out so much? At that moment, Aang tells Toph that something bad is already happening. Look at the state of the beautiful meadow that's supposed to be here. It's disgusting, it's defiled. How can that be right? But Satoru tells Aang that the pollution in the water isn't the refinery's fault, and that his uncle told him it was a natural phenomenon, something that really pisses Aang off, as he says, are you kidding me? Here, once again, Toph takes Satoru's side after having him repeat himself and using her sense to read whether or not he's lying, and Aang has had enough. He takes Toph to the side like, hey, what's your deal here? Do you have a crush on this guy or something? Is that what's blinding you? Okay, wrong wording, but you get what I'm trying to say. Are you so into everything going on here that you're losing sight of what's actually happening? Toph replies that it's Aang who's too caught up on old traditions to see all the progress happening here, that people from all around the world come here to work together, and that this is the future. So why should they stop that for some stupid backwards airbender holiday that doesn't even exist anymore? There, Aang grabs Toph by the shirt saying, wait, who do you think you're calling stupid and backwards? As Toph says she was only talking about the holiday, but if the shoe fits the airbenders, then too bad. And as it seems like these two are finally about to get into a fight over how they've been acting towards each other all day, the entire refinery begins to shake as things are about to take an interesting turn. As workers begin to run and Sokka comes to tell them to calm down, Aang and Toph go, what? You guys think we just caused that? And as Satoru says that none of their earthbenders are strong enough to have done that, Aang tells them that it definitely wasn't him because airbenders are taught to always maintain inner peace no matter how ridiculous the people around them are being. Catching the implication, Toph says, so what? You're saying it was me? And when Aang mocks her saying if the shoe fits, she gets really pissed off, saying, listen here, brat, don't forget I'm the one who taught you earthbending, as if I would ever. And as she begins to yell, the rumbling returns again, shaking the entire facility much more violently this time, as Satoru begs Aang and Toph to just leave because everything is falling apart. The issue is that this time we hear screams from inside the refinery where upon investigation, we see one of the machines going berserk, shooting out rocks that have to be deflected before they crush the innocent workers. Right there, Toph and Aang discover that someone is actually trapped beneath a section of fallen rubble and steel, so as they go in to save him together, Toph saves Aang from a huge falling rock before Aang uses his earthbending to free the man, and they both get him to safety as Toph destroys the machine. This finally allowed the two of them to vent their frustration that was building up all day and remember that they're friends, allowing them to go back and forth over whether or not they're too hung up on the past or too busy running away from it. And as Toph tells Aang that some people need to run from their past just to be able to live, suddenly we see a group of firebenders arriving trying to press Aang as the actual owner of the facility begins to scream about how much damage was done to this place, nearly crying over the machine that Toph broke, which cost 10,000 ban. It's here where as he screams to a man off screen, we see the man walk forward like he's seen a ghost, and it's revealed that Toph's father is here standing right before her. And when she says hello, he replies, this girl is not my daughter, making it really awkward for everyone else. Satoru steps in saying, Mr. Lau, you told me you didn't have a family at all. And when he snaps out of his confusion, Mr. Lau tells Satoru that he's correct. This girl must be confused because she's definitely not his, causing the rest of the gang to shout out that he's lying right now for no reason as they can't believe what they're hearing. There, Satoru tries to confirm with Toph whether or not any of this is true. However, he's stopped by his boss, who tells him to mind his own business as he begins screaming at him for all of the damage at the factory, telling everyone to get back to work because they've got deadlines to meet, as Mr. Lau has his guards escort Toph and her friends out of the building. But this is where Aang has had enough. He looks to his friends and says, "I'm not going anywhere until I talk to somebody about the location of this building and why it shouldn't be here." So in response, the guards smile like that's the best news they've ever heard, as everyone gets ready to throw down. Starting off as usual, we have the loudest guy in the room, a firebender, shooting flames right at Toph and Aang, with Toph knocking loose the earth under his feet as Aang leaps into the air and pushes all the guards down Toph's earthen slide. And as Aang warns his air acolytes to stay back and make sure they're safe because this isn't a lesson, one of the guards comes rushing in with a staff, trying to smash Aang's head in. It's here where Aang actually realizes that he knows this guy. He's a member of the Rough Rhinos, and as he hears this, the guard says that Aang has a really good memory because he joined that group back when life was easy and he could make a good living serving Lord Ozai, but the Avatar had to go ruin all of that. As he slams his staff into the ground, kicking up all sorts of dust, Aang uses his earthbending to wrap the man's arms in rocks, telling him that he needs to find some new friends because every group he chooses is bad news. But off on the side, Toph is in trouble as another one of the guards swings a bladed weapon at her full force, literally trying to cut her in half. And when Toph successfully counterattacks, sending the man flying through the air so high that he could have fallen and died, Aang saves him, screaming, "Toph, no!" as he tells her to be more careful. However, this doesn't really matter to the guard, who pulls out a knife and tries to stab Aang, showing you just how serious these people are. So as Aang uses his earthbending to disable one of the guys who was trying to stab him, he walks over to Toph, telling her that they need to be more careful because with how she launched that guy, he could have gotten actually hurt, and no matter how mad they are, there's no reason that they can't fight these enemies with inner peace so that they don't lose themselves. However, Toph doesn't agree at all. She tells Aang that she literally almost got sliced in half by that guy, and also reminds him that she's his teacher, not one of his students, meaning she'll fight however the hell she wants, as Toph races away using her stone running technique, leaving Aang standing there wondering where Sokka and Katara are. Well, as they're trying to fight back against the Rough Rhinos, Sokka tries to literally pierce into the leader's chest with the sharp end of his boomerang as it bounces off thanks to the guy's armor, and the man thankfully misses his counterattack, giving Sokka time to run off with Katara and create some distance. As time goes on, these two end up leading some of these guys away towards the disgusting water at the end of the polluted river, as the Rough Rhinos tell Sokka that this is the end of the road, and Katara agrees, forming a massive ball of water above her made up of that same polluted water, and using it to completely freeze everyone in place. Back near the factory though, we actually have some real trouble because one of the members of this group is actually broken off to try and get rid of Aang's air acolytes, where he swings a chain around prepared to let it loose. But just that second, one of Aang's students shows up riding a forklift, even though he's definitely not forklift certified, and the sight of this little fella joyriding around in this strange machine is enough to send the Rough Rhino man packing, but only for a few moments, as another one of Aang's students tells the boy named Jingbo to stop because this isn't the airbender way. That allows the bad guy to finally get the upper hand as he ties the two girls up and lifts Jingbo up by his shirt, ready to crush him like an orange. However, thankfully at that moment, out of nowhere, the chain that's wrapped around the girls begins to slowly uncurl and climb off of them, leaping onto the man and trapping him thanks to Toph's metal bending, as Toph brags again about being the inventor of this bending style and yells at Aang's students for completely giving up when they had the guy on the run, telling them that they need to stop worshipping rules and even the cultures of the past, because if they do, they're gonna come across a situation where someone takes away their present and future. And as Aang returns, trying to figure out what's going on and ultimately deciding that he needs to complete the ritual they're here for so he can get his students out of here, it's time to check in on Satoru and just what the hell is going on inside that factory. We see Satoru, the engineer of the factory, going up to his Bender employees and telling them that everyone is gonna have to pick up the pace, unfortunately, because they have to make up for the work on the other production lines that are going to be closed for a while due to the earthquakes. Because of that, his workers tell him that it's pretty hard to get anything done right now with all of the commotion, and as Satoru tells him that it's all over for now, we see one of the walls in the factory completely cave in, as on the other side, Toph punches right through it because she is pissed. Toph tells Satoru that she's here to talk to her dad, and he points her in the right direction, and from there, Toph continues her walk through the warehouse as she ends up in a room where all the stones they process there are checked for quality. It's there where Satoru catches up to her, offering to come along because she isn't going to be able to find the office alone, and that's when Toph corrects Satoru, telling him that she's surprised he isn't too busy sucking up to his uncle and groveling before him, which makes Satoru confused on why it's such a bad thing to respect his uncle, especially since his uncle owns the factory that's responsible for changing Satoru's life. In response, Toph tells him that there's a massive difference between having respect for someone and being their little pathetic grunt, and this sets Satoru off. He screams at Toph that she doesn't understand anything or even really know them to be talking this way, saying that his uncle was there for him when he was at his lowest point, and he's not just about to go against him for someone he just met, even if they're friends with the Avatar, as Satoru walks away with his head sinking into his shoulders, and Toph doesn't really react at all, because all she can think about is how her father denied her in front of everyone. There, as she walks through the doors of his office, standing right in front of him, we finally get to the bottom of why he's acting that way, as he once again denies that Toph is his daughter and tells her that he isn't just saying it because he thinks someone will hear him, but it's because all his life he worked as hard as he possibly could so that one day when he had children, he'd be able to pass on a life worth living onto them. That when his daughter was born, he spent countless years trying to raise her to be obedient and classy. However, now this rude, ungrateful thing is walking up to him, telling him that she's his daughter, and he just won't accept it, really sending a dagger right into Toph's heart. Because of that, Toph stands up for herself, saying, "Hey, listen, I know I've put you through a lot, but you have no right to talk to me that way." And even though that makes her dad react with a sad face for half a second, he quickly snaps back, telling her to show him that he's wrong and greet him properly like a daughter should to her father. So now it's time to see if Toph can put her attitude aside and rejoin the family, and that's when it all starts to flood out of Toph. She says, "You're wrong, father. You didn't raise a quiet, meek, well-mannered girl. That's just a distant memory that you're holding on to, and to be honest, even that memory is a lie because it was all an act. An act that I put on because it was the only way to survive, the only way to stay with you and mom with some sort of peace so you'd get off my back. But right here, right now, I'm standing in front of you, your actual daughter, the real one, and not the one you made up in your head. And I'm not so bad, Dad. I might not be proper, maybe I'm boyish, maybe I'll grow and completely neglect one of my kids too, but right now, I'm someone who's become the greatest earthbender in history. I'm someone who the Avatar relied on for training, and then beyond that, I helped the Avatar end the 100-Year War and bring peace to our country, freeing our people from the Fire Nation. Is that long, distant memory really so important that all of these things are worth ignoring? Is there nothing that he has to say to the girl that accomplished all that, runs her own metal bending academy, and still has time to live a free and happy life? For a moment, it's silent in the room, but then, even after listening to everything she said, Mr. Beifong still turns around and just walks away from Toph, as she turns away too, crying and rubbing her eyes, telling her father that it was a mistake coming here, and that he doesn't have to worry about her anymore because she'll never bother him ever again, as she heads towards the door. This is heart-wrenching because I feel like her dad did want to acknowledge her or at least say something, and it's got to be crushing him to have her walk away like that, but it's his own fault and he's just too hard-headed, so he's about to lose a connection with his own family for nothing. So next, giving the scene a break for a second, let's cut back to the rest of Team Avatar, who are still struggling with some firebenders outside, as Sokka stands in front of some frozen firebending Rough Rhino members who were just trying to kill our main characters. There, Sokka looks at one of the guards who has a stick of dynamite in his hands that he was planning on throwing at them, and Sokka says, "Damn, you must be an expert with that kind of thing. Is that the one you were planning to hit my sister with a moment ago? Wow, you probably want me to get rid of that thing before it blows your entire arm off. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Remember how you were trying to kill us a moment ago? What do you say?" And as the man replies yes to all of Sokka's questions and asks him to please save his life despite that, Sokka tries and fails to put out the light on the stick and actually has to throw it away, where it explodes in a massive blast that freaks everyone out because Sokka is like, "You were gonna hit us with that?" Quickly though, Katara calls over to Sokka, telling him that the blast broke some rocks that were covering a secret passage, so they're gonna go inside and leave these guys here because it's not like they're going anywhere. So from there, as Sokka straps one of the loose crystals onto his head and leads the way, as they eventually end up in a bigger chamber and stumble upon workers. These people are down here mining the caves, and what's worse is that Sokka and Katara can literally see one of the constructs in the cave leaking pollution into the water as someone tries to break up the sediment, meaning Satoru was lying, or at least wrong, when he said that the plant had nothing to do with how disgusting the area has become. But before they can turn around to go and tell Aang, they're suddenly found by more members of the Rough Rhinos, who again don't take any prisoners. So right here in this cave, Sokka dodges a swing from the enemy's Naginata as he returns of a strong swing of his boomerang
boomerang, knocking the man on his back. As the second guy prepares his arrow, firing off an entire barrage that Sokka dodges, but when the arrows hit the wooden support beams, it causes a quake to rumble throughout the entire cave, causing Katara to realize that this place is really responsible for all the problems in the area, telling Sokka that they need to stop fighting right now, or the entire cave is going to collapse in on all of them, including the people just doing their jobs. So she freezes the hands of the bowmen, and the two of them announce to everyone that it's time to leave, but no one steps forward to join them, and all of a sudden, a familiar face steps out of the crowd. We see Katara realizing that she knows some of these people as a pair of Water Tribe girls named Nutha and Neok step up, explaining why they need to stay. Nutha tells Katara that not everyone gets to go off and become best friends with the Avatar, and that it's not like she'd know since she hasn't been home since going off on her adventure. But the people of the Southern Water Tribe are struggling. This was the only job any of them could even find, meaning that without it, members of the tribe will starve, and that's more important than whatever danger they're in. However, they say that they will leave if the boss gives them an order, so at that moment, Sokka runs out of the cave heading straight to Mr. Beifong's office as he slams the door open, nearly hitting Toph, who he notices standing there crying, and Satoru also runs in, telling Sokka he can't be here. Sokka doesn't care about any of that. He yells, telling Mr. Beifong that he needs to let the people leave the iron mine under the factory or they'll all die. But Toph's dad has no idea what Sokka is even talking about. Iron mine? We only have a crystal mine under here, and it's inspected frequently to make sure it's safe. But being curious, he follows Sokka, and quickly arriving to the mine, he freaks out, saying, "What is this place? This mine shouldn't even exist. When we had this area evaluated, me and Loban, Satoru's uncle, agreed that this place would be far too dangerous to mine." However, that's when Loban finally appears through the freight elevator, saying he never made such an agreement, telling Mr. Beifong that he had to do this in secret because Lao is way too weak-minded, because he couldn't just ignore the most abundant cavern of iron that he's ever seen before, and also adding in that the amount of iron here doesn't even make any sense. It's almost a supernatural amount, like a gift from a god. Toph is not hearing it. She tells Loban to worry more about people's lives than money. However, that's where Satoru steps in defending his uncle, and Toph tells him to shut up because she can literally feel the entire cavern shifting around them and how dangerous it is. So as Mr. Beifong orders everyone to leave and their other boss orders them to stay, it's time to check on just what the rest of Team Avatar is doing in the meantime, as we see Aang and his air acolytes travel into town as Aang tries to take them to a sacred tree the airbenders used to eat at during their Yangchen Festival. However, the tree is obviously no longer there, just like anything else he remembers about this town. Not letting it throw him off his game, Aang decides that they'll eat in a restaurant that popped up in the same place, and going inside, we find out that it's actually a store run and owned by Mr. Cabbages. Now, as Aang walks in, there's a brief earthquake that nearly sends all of the cabbages falling to the ground again, as Sai, the cabbage man, stands there telling his cabbages that he knew they'd be safer in a store instead of a cart, but he's blown back when he turns around and notices the Avatar there. Sai tells Aang to stay back because bad things happen to his cabbages when Aang is around, but when Aang says he just wants to eat there with their friends, Sai says business has been slow, so he'll allow it, but carefully, and also telling them that they have to order something. They can't just eat their prepared lunches. So with that, everyone orders a big, hot, fresh plate of cabbage cookies, which sound gross. However, as they eat them, they say that they actually taste just like sugar cookies with a slight cabbage aftertaste, so maybe not so bad. There, Aang dusts the floors off quickly, using some airbending as they set up a mat with some incense burning next to a portrait of Avatar Yangchen. And as Aang starts to pray over the food, talking about how grateful they all are to still be able to at least celebrate this part of the festival all these years later, suddenly the room gets quiet around Aang as he opens his eyes, hearing the prayer get completed by an unfamiliar voice. It's Avatar Yangchen. Aang stands up excitedly for a moment, like, I can finally hear you, as it's time to clear up some of the mysteries that have been bothering him this entire time here, with Yangchen telling Aang that the reason he couldn't hear her is because his connection to all of the previous avatars has been damaged as a result of the other comic we're covering on this channel surrounding Zuko and Aang's promise and the war in Yudao. However, in spite of that, Aang and Yangchen are still able to connect over this meal because she says that by following old traditions that link benders together, he can tap into something called the guidance of the past, which is basically just another path for benders to try and channel the spirits of past avatars. There, Aang apologizes to Yangchen, telling her that he feels like Avatar Roku was different from her and that he was trying to get Aang to hold too tightly onto the past and the old ways. And Yangchen tells Aang that his past lives are meant to be a guide, not a bind, as he's meant to learn from the mistakes of the past avatars and be better. So to help him, Yangchen actually has a story about her greatest mistake, with her story starting centuries ago. She says back then, the Earth Kingdom had the grandest city in the world, and the leader of that city sent for her specifically because they needed her help. But at that point, Yangchen had only mastered the 4 elements about a week ago, so she still wasn't the fully realized avatar that she'd become. There, meeting with the mayor of the city, he tells her that their fortune tellers are warning them that the city is going to face a massive catastrophe soon, as the ladies say that someone is going to be returning for revenge, as Yangchen decides to just go and sit on a cliff outside of town to basically keep watch and make sure that nothing happens, as back then, she wasn't nearly as in tune with the spirit world as she eventually became, but she still had a feeling that the fortune tellers were right. That's when, just as the clock struck midnight, Yangchen was shook as out of nowhere, a massive stone man rose from the ocean, and even though she put on a brave face for everyone around her, she said that the spirit's grief overwhelmed her and showed her a level of despair and pain that she didn't know someone could ever feel. But being the avatar, it was still her job to deal with it, so she flew up to the giant and asked the spirit to leave the realm of humans alone and go back to where it came from, as it immediately just swatted her away like a bug, leaving Yangchen scared. There, her earthbending master told her that he'd go and evacuate as many people as he possibly can from the city, but somehow, someway, she still has to stop that thing, as we see the large giant making its way to town, already trying to destroy whatever it can, and it's time for her to move. There, as Master Bufo got everyone in the city out to safety, they watched as an epic battle took place, with Yangchen and the massive spirit doing battle all night long, neither being able to finish off the other, as eventually, right as the sun began to crawl up the sky, the giant golem-like creature finally fell over onto its back, but the damage was done. The city was left in utter ruins, causing Yangchen to scream out, "At least tell me what you did this for. What did you want?" And right then, suddenly the samurai golem puts his hand up, touching Yangchen on the forehead, as all of the stones seem to fall off of his body, showing us that this is the moment Yangchen actually connected with the spirit entity, as before her, Yangchen sees a massive man with a third eye, telling her his name is General Old Iron. It's here where Old Iron explains to Yangchen that a millennia ago, during the time where the great spirits still roamed the earth in the material world, Old Iron lived here alongside another spirit named Lady Tienhai, and he was actually her protector, since she was the most beautiful spirit in all of existence that just lived to try and spread that beauty to the world by treating the beach and seashore like it was her own personal garden. The issue is that eventually humans started to build homes there without asking for permission, as Tienhai graciously turned her attention towards the humans and started bending to all of their requests and demands. But Old Iron knew the truth. He knew that humans were slowly killing spirits and making their kind go extinct, and due to that, he could never bring himself to trust humans the way that Tienhai did. As this story continues, with Old Iron threatening to stomp the life out of all humans to protect his friend. However, instead we find out that Tienhai sided with the humans against Iron, sending him away as the years continue on, and that location became the greatest city on the planet. But something is wrong. General Old Iron says that all of his fears came true, because a few nights ago, he could feel Lady Tienhai's last breath, saying that she's dead now because the humans didn't know what they were doing, as Old Iron swears to get revenge on the town anytime that humans start to live there and get a little too comfortable. There, checking with the mayor, Yangchen tries to find out if any of this is true, and immediately confirming it and even admitting that it was his fault that the spirit died. This sends Old Iron into a rage, as he stands back up coating himself in iron ore, prepared to kill everyone here. There, not being able to control her avatar state at the sight of him slaughtering everyone, Yangchen once again did battle with Old Iron, and this time actually got the better of him, as Yangchen promises that peace and balance are possible, promising that the people here will take part in a ritual that'll satisfy both Yangchen and Old Iron moving forward, so they never let the mistakes of the past continue again. But we know this promise wasn't kept. Aang realizes that the ritual Yangchen used to make Iron go away was the Yangchen Festival that Air Nomads completed year after year here. However, now with the Airbenders being extinct and a new town making the same mistakes of the past, it feels like all hope is lost. Suddenly, as Aang is about to ask Yangchen about all the details of her promise of Old Iron, they feel a massive earthquake from within the spirit world, as Aang immediately wakes back up in the human world, and it's shaking here too. So much so, in fact, that Sai, way, the cabbage man has to clean up all of his cabbages despite being promised that everything would be fine, as Aang and the others rush out to go and find the source of these quakes. Now, while this is happening, Sokka and Katara are still dealing with rough Rhino security members down in the caves who are trying to keep everyone from leaving on Loban's orders, but they slice into a wooden support beam that was basically the last thing holding up the cave, causing everyone to run for their lives, as outside, we see Sokka and some of the workers finally meet up with Aang, who wonders just what the hell is going on. Quickly catching him up, Aang orders his air acolytes to start doing first aid on anyone they can, but that's when we learn that Katara is actually still stuck there in the caves, with Aang freaking out, telling Sokka where exactly they're buried so we can use his earthbending to get them out, as he starts lifting as many boulders as he can. But here's something familiar. It's Katara. From beneath the cave, Katara screams out that Aang has to stop because any wrong movement or bending could cause the rest of the cave to completely collapse on them, killing them. But it isn't just a cave full of rocks. All of them are surrounded by pure iron ore, meaning the only thing keeping them alive is Toph right now using her metal bending. This is bad. Thankfully though, we've already explained how Sokka himself became a teacher at Toph's metal bending academy, so quickly using Appa, Sokka travels to the school in order to pick up Hotun, Penga, and the Dark One, who are actually in the middle of teaching their own metal bending classes to a bunch of new students, which is impressive if you saw just how far this crew came. We see Aang standing right over the space where the mine is, just asking to hear Katara's voice and wondering how everyone is doing in there, as Katara, even more covered in dirt than before, tells him that they're all hanging in there, but Toph is starting to sweat as slowly the cavern gets smaller and smaller because she can only do so much. This is probably thousands and thousands of pounds of weight that she's holding up right now. Noticing her getting dehydrated, Katara tells Satoru to give Toph the last bit of her water, as he does exactly that, telling Toph not to speak and just focus up while he feeds her the water, but Toph tells Satoru that she needs him to stay with her and talk, reassuring him that she needs something else to focus on because she's getting kind of bored here and is barely even breaking a sweat. And seeing through the lie but still accepting her request, Satoru begins talking to Toph about why she ran away from home, saying that he can relate to her because he's a runaway too. Satoru there reveals that his parents actually both worked for Fire Lord Ozai, and after the end of the war, they joined the underground pro-Ozai movement, but he wasn't feeling it, so he ran away because he just couldn't take part in that. Afterwards, Satoru spent months on the streets of Ba Sing Se begging for food and barely surviving off the scraps that he could find when his uncle learned about everything that happened and saw him out, pulling him off the streets and giving him a respectable job, somewhere to live, and food every day. And he respected his uncle even more because his uncle never got into politics like his parents. But now he sees that his uncle only cares about money. It's a different type of evil, but Satoru admits that he turned a blind eye to it because he was scared of being sent back onto the streets and struggling again. It's at that point where Satoru tells Toph that he wishes he could be brave like her when she confronted her dad instead of running away, telling her that he's really amazed by how Toph has no limits to how awesome she could be, as Toph's dad forces his way into the conversation, and I'm not sure this is a very good idea because these two just had a massive fight. Mr. Beifong says that right now, he's ready to admit that Toph is his daughter and that he only denied her because he was hurt, because after she left, his wife blamed him for Toph never wanting to return home again, as eventually this caused a split in their marriage and forced Mr. Beifong to try and move to Cranefish Town to start a new life. There, he continues by telling her that he was wrong for the way that he treated her and couldn't see past his own rage, but now he wants Toph to know that there wasn't a day that went by where he didn't think about her or miss his daughter, and finally says that he's sorry for everything and actually loves her no matter what she thinks of him, causing Toph to just stand there in a pool of sweat for a moment that probably also has some tears in it, as she finally responds that this is exactly her dad's problem, confusing him. Continuing, Toph says that her dad still doesn't know her, because if he did, he'd know that there's absolutely nothing to worry about and that they're all going to make it out of here alive, because one fact still remains true. Toph Beifong is the greatest earthbender of all time, meaning she's willing to hold this cave up for the rest of time if it means that everyone can get out of here safely and alive. And right then, Toph's students finally arrive on the scene, standing above the cavern with Aang, who instructs him on just what to do, given that they can't see them and he himself can't metal bend. However, that's when Katara screams out that Toph wants her students to know that this is just their spider ants beneath stomping feet exercise, but in reverse, with the students explaining that that exercise is one where they have to catch and lift giant steel plates over their head from within a pit of sand, or they'll get crushed, causing Aang to wonder just what the hell is going on at Toph's school as they use their bending to lift massive chunks of ore from the cavern up and away. However, suddenly they look down and see a face. Well, more like a mask. But what is the giant iron mask even doing here? Aang immediately recognizes it as the mask of the spirit general that promised to destroy this town in his vision, as he doesn't have much time to really react before Toph students tell him that they need his help, because even though Aang can't metal bend, they need him to use his earth bending to make sure that the leftover dirt and earth doesn't collapse on top of everyone once they pull out this last piece of iron. So right there, with one last push, everyone works together to clear the entry into the mine, as feeling the sun for the first time in hours, Toph lets out a thumbs up towards her students saying not bad as she passes out into her father's arms. And slowly, we see everyone start to climb out of the cave as Aang's air acolytes start to do first aid on whoever they can, while Aang and Katara share a passionate kiss since they didn't know if they'd ever see each other again. Off on the sides, Toph students comment on how she still hasn't woken up because she's so exhausted, as Hotun says that he can't believe how small and fragile Toph looks right now because usually she's so terrifying. But that's when they realize the man holding her is actually her dad, with the gang surprised that she even has one and didn't pop out of a rock somewhere. But things aren't exactly over here, because while Katara checks on the members of the Southern Water Tribe that have their own injuries, Uncle Loban, the owner of the mine, congratulates everyone on their excellent work, saying it would have taken months to dig all of that iron out from the ground, as he orders his Fire Nation guards to use their rhinos to drag as much of it as they can to the beach, where he'll ship it away to the Fire Nation to process there, since he doesn't want to share any of the money with Mr. Beifong. But that's when the whole vibe in the town changes. A storm begins to roll in, as dark clouds cover the sky and Katara takes note of it, but Aang says he can tell this isn't just a random storm. Something is coming. And as Aang sees Avatar Yangchen standing off to the side, Aang grabs a rock and uses his earthbending to turn it into a Fire Nation symbol so that he can fix his necklace, which is supposed to contain a symbol of all 4 nations. This allows Aang to reconnect to the spirit world in search of guidance from his past lives, where he's surprised by the appearance of Avatar Roku, since previously Aang actually tried to cut off the connection between him and Roku, but apologizes for doing so here because he says that he missed him. There, Roku explains to Aang that he needs to remember that no matter what the avatars tell him, they're only looking out for his best interest. However, that doesn't mean everything they say is correct or has to be applied the same way, since they're all only guiding Aang from their own experience. There, walking past Avatar Kyoshi and Kuruk, Aang eventually ends up back in front of Yangchen, who he asks about her agreement with General Old Iron, allowing Yangchen to finally complete her story. Yangchen tells Aang that General Old Iron promised to never don his armor again and attack humanity if she built a memorial for his friend Lady Tienhai, which is the mysterious statue at the coast that Aang and the others found at the start of our story. Alongside the memorial, she also promised that this land would be allowed to return to its natural state free of human influence, as a sign that humans are capable of preserving and protecting the balance between them and spirits, with the Air Nomads being guided by her to complete a festival every year there, turning the land into one sacred to them. But now, with the rise of Cranefish Town and everything that's happened here, the promise has been completely broken, and nothing they do can stop Old Iron from returning. So Yangchen tells Aang to go and be with his friends as they need him right now, as Aang leaves the spirit world and flies up into the sky to see that Old Iron is slowly rising out of the sea and heading their way. Aang can't stop General Old Iron from returning from the sea in order to wipe the humans out from Cranefish Town, so he tells his friends to evacuate as many people as they possibly can, begging Sokka to use the forklift that he recently got certified for to put all of the iron and dirt back into the cave, since they have to make the town look just like it did before any of the humans arrived here in the first place, which confuses Sokka, because doesn't that mean that Aang is going to have to completely destroy the town and the refinery himself? That's crazy. Aang agrees, but says he still has to do it, as Sokka and Satoru realize there are a few pieces of iron, including the massive mask they found, that are missing because Uncle Loban had his Fire Nation guards drag them to the beach so he could send it away back home. There, speeding through town, we actually get a look at Katara trying to save Sai, the cabbage man, who cries over having to abandon his business before being excited when he too sees a forklift for the first time, showing just how cool these damn things are. But that's when Sokka and Satoru finally reach the beach, with Loban's men trying to load the big iron mask onto their ship, as Sokka's boomerang comes flying in, cutting the rope and dropping the heavy mask onto the ground, because this ends here. Sokka says the Avatar needs that mask, so I'm gonna be returning it to him, as Satoru screams at his uncle, saying that his greed almost got them all killed and he still hasn't learned his lesson. But when Uncle Loban tells Satoru that he planned for him to be a successor, but now that's all over since Satoru doesn't have what it takes, he orders the rough rhinos to kill both Sokka and Satoru so they can get away, causing Sokka to finally get his moment moment as he stands up with the storm pouring rain all around him as he easily deflects one of these Fire Nation guards' arrows, passing his battle club onto Satoru as he tells them that they're gonna need to fight their way out of this one and it's time for Sokka to put in that work. As he realizes that Satoru was going to be pretty useless here as he runs away from his opponent, causing Sokka to lock in, throwing his boomerang again and knocking the bow out of the hand of his opponent, laughing with a huge smile on his face, telling the Fire Nation man that he knows his type and knows that he only got good with the bow and arrow because his hand-to-hand combat is going to be trash, as Sokka puts his fist up and charges in, saying nothing as he ducks under a punch, grabs the man by the arm, and then does an overhead slam, knocking the guy onto his back and sending the air out of his lungs. As off on the side, we see Satoru still running from the man with a large Naginata-like spear chasing after him. There, Satoru does the only thing he can think of, as he leads the man charging towards his forklift and opens up the hood, exposing the engine, where he bangs Sokka's battle club against the perfect spot, causing parts of it to literally explode and hit the Fire Nation soldier that was chasing him right in the face, knocking him out cold, as Satoru wonders if just outsmarting people like this actually makes him brave. And Sokka tells him 100% it does, as Satoru says, "Great, so how are we gonna outthink that thing?" As he points off to the side and Sokka turns his head, suddenly seeing a massive creature standing in front of them with red skin and glowing pink eyes filled with rage, as General Old Iron has finally touched land. But what is Aang doing right now? Well, a little while back, we saw that as Old Iron was still in the water approaching Cranefish, Aang told Katara that he was going to do something that he hates the most, as he tells her to keep everyone away and goes into the Avatar state, flying back towards town to destroy as much of it as possible to keep General Iron away from the town. But that's where Toph's dad notices exactly what's going on here. He says that they have to stop the Avatar because he can't lose that refinery. It's all he has. And overhearing this, Toph asks for an explanation of everything going on, with her dad doing so and begging for her help since she is the greatest earthbender of all time and is probably the only person who can stop the Avatar right now, causing Toph to stand up in excitement as she runs off of her metal bending students to stop Aang. But as he sends a group of massive fireballs crashing into the refinery, suddenly we see a huge wall of earth springing out from the ground to block it, as Toph and her 3 metal bending students stand in Aang's way. Aang says, "Toph, what are you guys doing?" as Toph tells him that they're here to stop him because he's clearly lost his mind. There, Aang tries to explain what he learned from Avatar Yangchen and the Old Promise, but Toph isn't hearing it. She says, "You want to show spirits that humans know how to preserve and protect by destroying everything that humans created here? How does that even make sense?" And as Aang tells her that he doesn't have time to explain anything to her because Old Iron is here, Toph tells him that she already told Aang that her dad's refinery is the future and she won't let him get in the way of that progress. And she tells Aang that if he wants her and her students to get out of the way, he's going to have to make them leave. And Aang, definitely tired of this conversation, sends 4 different cyclones of air flying towards the earthbenders and easily knocks away Toph's 3 students. But Toph is a master. She blocks Aang's attack and sends back one of her own, nearly knocking him out of the sky, as Aang has to dodge a bunch of projectiles using his agility in the air, but Toph still manages to hit him, which is even crazier when you consider she legitimately can't see him at all or really even sense him because again, he's floating on wind. Off on the side, we see Satoru's uncle still trying to lug away the giant iron mask that belongs to the spirit as he holds onto the rope attached to the mask while the mask floats his way back up to the face of its master. And Old Iron continues his march towards Aang and the others, while Toph and her students all land in front of Aang and combine their metal bending powers together to send 4 massive boulders his way, knowing that Aang can't bend them back. However, there, Aang manages to dodge the attack as him and Toph try to make each other see reason, but it's too late. At that moment, the giant angry spirit, General Old Iron, makes his way into town, absorbing all of the loose iron ore in the town onto his body as armor, as Sokka, Satoru, and Uncle Lobon all dangle from its mask, causing Katara to create a huge tunnel of water for them to slide down to safety. But what exactly does safety mean here? Iron wants to wipe out everyone and everything that he sees here, causing Aang to finally fly up to the general and introduce himself, but Old Iron knows exactly who Aang is, telling him to stay out of his way because he won't be listening to any avatars anymore. The promise was broken. Now isn't the time for talking, it's time for erasure, as Old Iron punches directly into the town, wiping out a camp of workers who go running for their lives, but we see that thankfully Katara was actually able to create a big shield made of ice to keep anyone from dying, as Old Iron suddenly feels a giant knock to the back of its head, turning around completely shocked as we see Aang in the avatar state creating a massive golem of his own made of rock to try and fight this thing. And it's official, people. Festival, we officially have a kaiju battle. As it begins, Old Iron rushes in, trying to shatter Aang's Titan apart, since of course Iron should be stronger than stone, but Aang's giant catches this punch as the two Titans clash with their second punches, sending a massive crackling sound through the area, and Toph and the others look on, not believing what they're seeing. That's the moment that Toph realizes that maybe she was wrong, as suddenly she tells her students to make a run for it because Avatar Aang needs their help. They're realizing that Aang can't possibly win as long as General Iron's body is completely covered in iron ore that Aang can't bend. She decides that she, along with her students, are going to rip that armor off piece by piece as the battle continues. There, as Aang and Iron clash once more, something feels different as the general notices his armor starting to slowly fall apart, not believing what he's seeing because he comes from a time before metal bending, with Toph screaming to Aang to take this opportunity now since Iron's chest is fully exposed. But Aang, annoying as ever, still can't do it. He says if I hit him there, he might not be able to take it, worried about killing the spirit, as Toph screams that they literally have no other option here and it's do or die, as Old Iron finds Toph and her friends and is literally about to crush them, causing Aang to scream no and completely allow the Avatar state to take over as he fires a massive laser beam of highly pressurized fire and water right through the giant's chest, knocking the spirit onto its back as Aang gasps and flies down, immediately apologizing for what he's done, knowing that he's actually dealt a killing blow to this creature. Laying there, Old Iron cries saying, "Save it! It's too late for me, just like it's too late for my kind. Years ago, I was so much more powerful than you humans, but now look at us. Look at how things have changed. Lady Tienhai may have refused to see it, but I was right all along. There's no longer a place in this world for spirits." As Old Iron stands up wiping his tears away, and Aang tries to reason with it, telling the spirit that maybe he can still be healed if Katara does her best, or please, it's my job to maintain balance between the spirits and humans. You have to let me help. Responding, Old Iron tells Aang that he's only fooling himself here, and that avatars repeatedly claim that they care about balance, but it's all built on a lie, since once the rift between spirits and humans was there, he's noticed that eventually the avatar always sides with the humans, because the avatar is a human after all, and at the core of every human lies the will to dominate. It's in his nature, as Iron tells Aang that if he looks deep enough, even the Avatar will find that within his heart, as Iron proclaims that there can never be balance between spirits and humans because of this, as he walks into the ocean and bows his head at Aang, still commending the young man for actually being able to vanquish Old Iron, as suddenly the spirit breaks apart into thousands of smoke-like strands that all take the shape of these really cool looking iron rock lobsters that drift off into the air, as Toph walks up to Aang telling him she knows that couldn't have been easy, and the two share a hug. But the damage is done. Afterwards, Aang and the others traveled back to Lady Tienhai's memorial statue from the beginning of the story and see that it's been completely destroyed, thinking that maybe that was caused due to the earthquakes, as everyone has a real sad vibe, with Aang wondering if Old Iron was right about there never being any balance between spirits and humans ever, even in the future, as Katara tries to tell him that it'll be okay because he can just ask his past lives for advice, but Aang doesn't agree, saying, "We're talking about the future here, Katara. I'm not sure that'll help." And I guess it's a good thing that Aang didn't live to see Avatar Korra's future, given how much worse she makes things. Aang sits alone at a destroyed monument outside of town among numerous cranefish that are squawking loudly around him, causing him to feel empathy for them as he says, "Sorry guys, you don't have a statue to sit on anymore." But there, as little bits of smoke starts to leave the bodies of the cranes, and Aang touches one realizing they're not just normal animals, that's when suddenly before him, the bodies of the cranes turn into pure energy and combine to take on the form of Lady Tienhai, who of course is the person that the giant statue was a memorial of. There, the spirit of Lady Tienhai tells Aang that she was once the caretaker to this place, explaining that eventually humans showed up and built what she calls a magnificent city. However, General Old Iron couldn't support it and abandoned her. This caused her, all alone, to become more in tune with the people of this growing town, as once a year she started a tradition where she'd take on human form and just live amongst them for a night to enjoy their culture. However, one day during this trip, she met a young man the prince of the city, who she fell in love with. This man was so impressive to her because he invented all sorts of things, but still had time for art and sculpting, and even helped design the city into the beauty that it was at the time, causing the two of them to get married as Tienhai decided to live out the rest of her days as a human. However, that's when tragedy struck. One day, Lady Tienhai died suddenly of unknown causes, and this caused the prince, who had now become a king, to grieve, blaming himself for his love being the reason why Tienhai took on her human form and lost her immortality. But he was actually wrong. Tienhai says spirits don't die, they merely change form, but Tienhai says that just the same, General Old Iron was wrong as well. Humans don't inherently dominate, their nature is one of creation. They make things, and while they can falter here and there, she still thinks humanity is intrinsically good, telling Aang to never give up on balance because there will always be a place for spirits and humans to coexist in this world as long as the humans create those spaces. As her spiritual body takes the shape of the many cranes in the field once more, flying away, telling Aang she's resting her hopes on him and the rest of humanity, and this story reaches its end. As 3 months later, after the reconstruction effort, we see Team Avatar and everyone working together to throw a new festival in Cranefish Town that honors the spirits of Lady Tienhai and General Old Iron, as Toph punches Satoru for not inviting her back to the refinery because the two of them are supposed to be partners now, wink wink, and everyone celebrates the new spirits friendship festival as the Avatar's journey continues. And just in case you don't know, I actually have a full version of this story and every other story that I cover on my YouTube channel right now, so if there's any parts that you might have missed or you forgot something, you can watch it from beginning to end with no interruptions. So see you there soon at Vocal Pineapple Academia.